I don't know what it is, but 42, 43, women will come to me and be like, I literally fell off a cliff.
The topic of menopause and perimenopause is something that affects every single person because it either affects you or someone that you love. But we know very little about it.
I think society and maybe our moms have told us, well, this is what it's like to be a woman.
It's so normalized.
Yeah, it's so normalized for us to suffer needlessly. Our bodies in this transition are profoundly changing.
That's not exciting.
I didn't sign up for that.
We didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
Zero permission.
The more that we can understand that our bodies are changing, that gives us power, that gives us agency. What if this was a time when everything was up for review?
What would you say are the biggest misconceptions about perimenopause? Today, we are talking about something so important, and if you are a woman, you are affected by perimenopause. We're talking about the hidden truth behind perimenopause that really no one is talking about and why it is so important and changes everything about how you age. My guest is the beautiful Dr. Mariza Snyder, and she is a functional medicine practitioner, hormone expert, and the author of 9 books. Her most recent book is the one we're talking about today, The Perimenopause Revolution. And I learned so much in this conversation. I could have talked to her for hours because there are so many nuances to the aging process and what's happening in our bodies and with our hormones. And if you're anything like me, I just want to know what to expect so I can create a plan around it. And luckily, she has done that for us. It is all in her new book, and we are breaking it down in this conversation today. Mariza, welcome to Powerhouse Women. We finally made it happen.
Oh my goodness, I am so happy to be here.
I'm so thrilled to have you. And this conversation and your new book is something that is relevant to every single person listening, even the men, because the topic of menopause and perimenopause is something that affects every single person in some way because it either affects you or someone that you love. And it is such a buzzy topic right now, but we know very little about it. So I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful for your work, and I can't wait to dive into this.
Me too. Yes. It is. Perimenopause and menopause are having a moment. So what a perfect opportunity for this conversation.
And we were talking last night at dinner about how, so we're both in our 40s. And when I think about my mother's generation, my grandmother, it's like, there was such a different context to what this season of life meant. But I want to start with this, and I want to have you expand on this because there's this great quote on your website that says, what if this isn't actually aging? What if this is your awakening? So how do you view these two very pivotal times in our life as women? And how can we give a different context to it than what is sold to us in mainstream?
Absolutely. Such a great question. I would say exactly that what if this is about you stepping further into your most authentic self? What if this was a time when everything was up for review? Where this was an opportunity to reassess about what truly matters to you, your boundaries, your full body yeses, your hell no's, and what you want to prioritize. I think one of my favorite questions to ask during this phase for myself is, what would you love? What would you love in your health? What would you love in your business? What would you love in your life? And I know that there have been years where I have lived my life for other people. I have, done things out of obligation that I never really wanted to do. And I feel like I'm in a defining moment where I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to live for myself, and I am going to live in my mission and purpose. And so if any woman listening to this has thought, up until this moment, like I kind of have been living someone else's life, or I've been following these rules that haven't felt like my rules. This is the opportunity to decide what you want the second half of your life to be.
Yeah. Why do you think this is such a pivotal time to just change the way that we're approaching life? What is it about this season? Whether you want to speak to it hormonally as a doctor or just as a woman who's here yourself, because I know I'm having my own experience with this, but I can't quite put my finger on like, yeah, why do I just give less fucks?
Oh yeah, it's such a great question. Well, clinically speaking, our bodies in this transition are profoundly changing. Perimenopause and menopause are equally destabilizing as they are transformative. And as I mentioned, when your body is shifting and you're not necessarily always feeling like yourself, and you're realizing that you need to be mindful about your energy capacity, you're like, actually, I don't have energy for that anymore.
Yeah.
Like you just get really clear on what matters. I think the other thing that's coming up is that, as we were talking about last night, the average age expectancy for women is 81 and for men is 76. And I think we get into our 40s, we get into midlife and we're like, I'm about halfway to towards the end of my life. And I think that's when we get really clear about, have I created or have I been living the life I want to truly live with the people in my life, the work that I do, the things that I'm doing? Is it in a meaningful way that feels good to me? And so I think it's a lot of things that are coming up for review. One, your health is shifting, your body's shifting, and ultimately your life is continuing to move forward. And I think we begin to realize that time is the most finite resource that we have.
Yeah, it's so true. Gosh. So let's back up a step because your book is called The Perimenopause Revolution. Until I would say maybe just a few years ago, the only word that I ever heard used was menopause.
Yeah.
When was this concept of perimenopause really introduced as a medical, like in the medical community? And what does it really mean? How do we know whether we're in that phase? Is there a way to test for it? Give us a breakdown of what perimenopause is as opposed to full-on menopause.
Absolutely. So yeah, again, perimenopause is something a lot of us just did not know about. I would say we weren't really talking about it, or it wasn't really defined until the 1990s. And it makes a lot of sense. In 1993, the FDA had mandated finally that women needed to be included in clinical research. And so,
which is wild.
Yeah, I was 13 years old. That is so wild to me. And so we weren't really recognizing it. Yes, we knew what menopause was and we knew how to treat a menopause, quote unquote, but we didn't really understand that there was this transition. But it makes a lot of sense. I want to take us back to puberty, right? We all went through it, a very transformative phase for us as girls. And this was us coming into our reproductive years, our ascension into our menstrual cycles and our rhythmically cycling hormones. Well, perimenopause is the 4 to 10 year transition that is our second puberty. But instead of going into our reproductive years, we are coming out of our reproductive years. And it can feel, as those hormones are shifting and fluctuating, as I like to say, erratically declining without permission. I don't think anyone asked for this.
Nobody asked my permission.
Exactly.
Yes, you're right.
That is the kind of that erratic transition into menopause.
Yeah.
And if I were to define menopause very quickly, so natural menopause is anywhere between 45 and 55 years old. And if we kind of reverse engineer that, perimenopause is a transition 4 to 10 years prior to menopause. Women anywhere between mid to late 30s into their early 40s are often entering into perimenopause.
And what is that phase marked by? What are some of the physical symptoms that people might be noticing, or mood changes? I mean, there's so many things the more I've learned about it that are actually empowering. It's empowering to know that it's based on a biological change that's happening. Therefore, we can address it, which we'll get to that next. But what are some of those signs that we might be entering this phase?
Absolutely. So there are 2 clinical phases that we talk about. I personally think there are 3. So there is what we call the late perimenopause phase, and the early perimenopause phase. But then I like to look at late reproductive. And that's kind of like what you're talking about of I just kind of want to know and be really prepared for when things are beginning to shift in a big way. And so late reproductive, I think you've heard the term geriatric pregnancy, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I roll. Yes.
And that's after the age of 35. And the reason for that is that by the time we're 35 or our mid to late 30s, we only have so many eggs left. And then by the time we hit 40, at midlife, because that's kind of the defining moment of midlife, in case you were wondering and don't really want to own it yet. But we have about 10,000 or so, or even less eggs. And so as we are beginning to have less ovulatory cycles, which means that we're not ovulating in every cycle, and that can happen even in our mid to late 30s, our levels of progesterone begin to shift. And the conversation between our brain and our ovaries begins to falter. As a result, our hormones begin to fluctuate, and they can change day to day. So in late reproductive phase, usually it's very subtle. It can feel a lot like the daily pain points of everyday life that I think society and maybe our moms have told us, well, this is what it's like to be a woman.
Yes.
Yeah. This
it's
is
so
just
normalized.
What it's like. Yeah, it's so normalized for us to suffer needlessly. So initially what women will tell me is, and this is when progesterone is beginning to decline a little bit, because without ovulation or great ovulation, progesterone just doesn't show up the way that it should be in the luteal phase. So we'll notice all of a sudden PMS symptoms that were only 2 days are now 3 or 4 days. We'll notice less stress tolerance, or we'll notice less sleep in that period. Everything's just a little bit exacerbated. And then as we move into early perimenopause, this is around, I would say, in the thousands of women I've taken care of over the years, I don't know what it is, but 42, 43, women will come to me and be like, I literally fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like myself anymore.
Yeah.
And so this is when they'll notice a lot more severe PMS symptoms. Again, still cycling. So you go to your doctor and you'll often get the brush off because they're like, you're still cycling. Yeah. You're not in perimenopause.
Yeah.
And that's just not true. So they'll notice stress resilience. What I hear from women, and this has been my own personal experience, is that women are like, I felt stable. I felt on my edge. I felt like I was firing all cylinders. I was super productive. And all of a sudden, everything's feeling like I'm having to really effort. My mood is shifting. I'm feeling more irritable. My family members are getting on my nerves easier. Like, it just,
I don't punch someone.
Yes. I feel like I'm going to hurt somebody 5 days out of the month. Like, they just don't feel like themselves anymore. Cycles at this point, although you're still cycling, it may only be 25, 24 days. You may also notice that the PMS symptoms are more severe, but then also your brain, in terms of mental clarity and alertness, brain fog, like, you just can't think the way that you used to. And so I think that can be very destabilizing. Other things, we'll start to see body composition changes happen without even gaining weight. All of a sudden, the kind of fat disposition moves from the legs and the butt over to the belly. Workout recovery isn't what it used to. And so again, it becomes a little bit more overt.
Yeah.
And then late peri, talk about send me a sign, make it impossible for me to miss. And this is kind of how we always thought of perimenopause for a very long time, was that it was just the 3 to 4 years knocking on menopause's door. This is where now you are having erratic cycles. You are missing a period for more than 60 days. And, one day, you have a regular cycle, and then 3 months later, it's all crazy. This is where we start to see some of the most classic signs of perimenopause: vaginal dryness, low libido, hot flashes, night sweats, severe brain fog. And so it can really feel like things are really up in the air. So those are kind of the breakdowns of the 3 phases of perimenopause.
Now, let's just call it like it is. That's not exciting.
No.
To talk about or to live.
I didn't sign up for that.
We didn't sign up for this with zero permission. Yet, and I was talking to you a little bit about this last night. I don't know if it's this. I don't want to bring like a toxic positivity to it, but I think I've approached everything in my life with knowing that it's empowering to know the facts, but then also knowing that how I relate to what's going on also really dictates how I feel within it.
Absolutely.
So as I'm kind of entering these years for myself, I know I'm really intentionally surrounding myself with conversations and women like you who not only can bring education and we can just be real about these experiences that are universal for women, but also come with a plan. But I want you to speak to that. I mean, culturally, societally, we celebrate youth in such a way that I think I look at my perspective of this transition and I'm not looking forward to it. And that's not typically the way that I operate. I usually can find an empowering context within it. But I think maybe it's also being divorced. And now like so much of my future and what I thought I would be living in these years just looks so different. So I'm also now evaluating it against the backdrop of, am I still valuable, right?
Yeah.
As a woman, because I'm now in a different phase than I thought I would be. What has been your personal experience with this sacred time, and how can we create a more empowering context around it?
Yeah, I want to be very honest in that this transition has been very destabilizing.
Yeah, that's a great word to use for it. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, destabilizing. I'm just like, wait, who is this woman? Who are you? And that is ever the more reason for me to get so crystal clear in who I want to become and what my mission is, in my consistency, in my habits.
Yeah.
Even on the hard days, I am consistent. Yes, I may shift let's say I have a migraine, because I've had chronic migraines since perimenopause. I've had them since I was a little girl, but they disappeared for a long time and then they came back. And so it's been really interesting to navigate migraines. I had one the day before I showed up for here. Actually, no, I had one yesterday. And it is even still like, so maybe yesterday I was supposed to go do a big heavy lift day with one of my besties, one of my workout besties. But instead I let her know, I'm like, I'm not able to do it today, but I walked and I moved my body in a way that felt really good. So despite the hard days, like I know that I want to be consistent. But for me, it's all about mindset and deciding. I get to decide if I am valuable. I get to decide if I am worthy. I get to decide if I am of value to everyone that I'm showing up to serve. And what I know for sure is that women are valuable at any age, but as we age, we get to bring in our life experiences, our hard-learned lessons, and who we are, like who we authentically are. And one of the greatest gifts that we can give to this world is our deep, authentic self, and a woman who knows what she wants and is doing what she loves.
Yeah. It's been, and I think it for me has been heightened by the fact that I've also been in this season of healing and looking at where my self-worth was rooted previously. So destabilizing is the perfect word to use, but that's not always a bad thing, because I think what's being destabilized were some of the programs that I didn't realize. I had self-worth tied to other things that aren't actually where my self-worth, where I want it to be rooted in. So the honesty and the wisdom that comes with this phase are two of the things that I am grateful for. But I also want to talk a little bit about tangibly how women can support themselves. Other than, of course, reading your amazing book, which is out this fall. And I'm so excited. I'm so grateful. I actually have an advanced copy of it, and it's so practical and so helpful. Like it's what I didn't know that I needed in order to feel prepared for this next season. But how can you start to share for women who are now realizing they're on the cusp of this or about to enter? What are some of the most important things we can be doing to support ourselves, to support our hormones and our mental health as we start to enter this phase?
I love this question, because I think we all want to feel prepared, right? So that we can navigate this particular transition with as much grace and power and resilience as possible. But I think we also want to double dip. I want to do the things that I'm doing right now to help me feel alive in my body and help me feel resilient. But I also want to know that it is going to impact my 30-year-old self, my 40-year-old self. So the first thing I tell any woman is really gaining agency over your body. We live in a time where you're still going to get brushed off. On average, it takes 4 to 6 office visits at your doctor's office to even link your symptoms to a diagnosis of perimenopause and menopause. And something I always tell women, I say it in a beautiful way, but that no one's really coming to save you. Like it is you that is driving the ship. But you think about, like, for us as women, you're the CEO of the household. You are the CEO of your business. You're your CEO of the family. I mean, really being the CEO of our health is one of the most empowering things that we can do. So if you're still cycling, let's say I'm catching you on the early side of peri, or maybe not even in perimenopause yet, know your cycle, know your menstrual cycle, track your menstrual cycle, because it's a monthly report card. It's going to tell you so much about what is going on, especially in perimenopause. I always joke that everybody wants day 12 us, because day 12...
I'm like, yeah, that's about it. That's about it.
That's when estradiol peaks, right? That's that estradiol peak that's going to bring in follicular stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. It's priming ovulation.
Yes.
That is that, you are confident, you are vivacious, you feel good, you're feeling sensual, right? Everyone wants day 12 us, and nobody's looking for day 27 or day 26, right? But there's something to be said about knowing where you are in your cycle so you can really honor yourself in day 12. But let me tell you, in perimenopause, I have noticed there are some months in my follicular phase where day 12 fell flat.
Yeah.
It was flat because estrogen just wasn't doing what she was normally doing. But because I track my cycle, I can understand what's going on. So there's so much information that we can gather from our menstrual cycle, and it allows us to give ourselves extra grace, and it allows us to communicate with our partners, with the people in our lives. So around 7 days prior to my period is where things kind of hit the fan for me, or did, before I brought in HRT. And it was good for me to know this, because I knew if I was 7 days out, I could have the conversation with my partner and say, hey, just letting you know, we entered the week. Okay. I just want to, we are here, and I'm going to need you to leave me alone.
Don't breathe on me or near me.
Don't even come near me. Yeah. Let me solo walks, hot girl walks. Yes. You don't get to come.
Yeah.
So it's that conversation. Next, know your numbers. I always ask my patients, like, are you a part of the 7% that are metabolically healthy? And the way we know that is by knowing our numbers. And that's looking at fasting glucose, HDL, triglycerides, your waist circumference, and your blood pressure. So knowing those numbers can really help to dictate. Ideally, as your provider and practitioner, I want to know a timeline, because what may be your normal isn't somebody else's normal. And
so true.
I would only know that if I've got a timeline. So let's say you come in with a vitamin D level and, it's in normal range, but that's technically not your normal vitamin D level. So if I have a timeline and I'm able to track that into perimenopause, I can know how to really take care of you as an individual. Because the one thing about perimenopause and this profound transition is it's unique to each and every one of us. And then the next step is, I would say, besides knowing your numbers, knowing your cycle, knowing your symptoms, it's going to be deciding how you want this transition to look and feel for you. There's something about deciding about this is what I'm going to do in this transition. This is how I'm going to operate in this transition that changes everything. So that would be what I tell any woman stepping into perimenopause. Because again, I saw a meme recently that said, perimenopause is this 10-year transition. She's like, that's not a transition. That's a career.
It is.
It is. So we're talking, saddle up, ladies. This is a journey that the more that you are clear on who you want to become throughout, the more you'll be able to navigate it with grace.
That point about making the decision is so pivotal. You're preaching to me, even in my inquiry, about realizing, gosh, I'm flooded with, even my algorithm is flooded with so much information, gloom and doom about what this season means. And then the beauty industry that's telling me I'm no longer beautiful if I'm not young. And there's so much information coming at us, to remember that the autonomy and the sovereignty to make a decision and have that set the tone, because that changes how I advocate for myself with my practitioner. That changes the conversations I allow around me about aging and what it means. And I think it's so easy to forget that we actually always have a choice, whether we're talking about a health transition like this or anything that we're facing in life. That moment of decision is so pivotal. I love that. What do you think What would you say are the biggest misconceptions about perimenopause?
There's a lot of misconceptions about perimenopause. Number one, that these hormones are only affecting your breasts. I call it bikini medicine, or it's been dubbed bikini medicine, your breasts and your ovaries. That it is just a reproductive transition when it is a whole body transition. And I think the more that women understand that their bodies are going to change on a physiological level, sometimes very acute, like, oh, I'm noticing this, and other times silent. The more that we can understand that our bodies are changing, that gives us power, that gives us agency. We deserve to know what's happening to our bodies, right? And to not suffer needlessly. So that's number one. Number two, that weight gain is inevitable. Like, I think women are just like, it's just going to happen to me. All of this is just going to happen to me, but it doesn't have to be an inevitability. Again, you get to decide how you want it to play out, how you shift your lifestyle habits. You know, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I could get away with like running into my bed and falling asleep. I could get away with less sleep and still function. I could get away with drinking a couple glasses of wine and still be good the next day. But man, there's something about this transition that you're like, okay, I get to get very clear about the habits that are serving me and the habits that are not serving me. And I get to decide that I'm doubling down on the things that help me to feel good. I'm not doing the things that don't help me to feel alive anymore. And then the other misconception I just want to make clear is that a lot of women think this is the beginning of the end. That's so far from the truth. It is, yes, it is a crossroads. And you, again, you're standing in the crossroads. And again, this is not my grandmother's menopause that I'm going through, right? I'm not going to let it happen to me. I'm not going to be sucked into the societal belief that I'm diminishing. I'm getting smaller, that I have nothing else to say anymore. Like, I get to decide the habits, I get to decide the mindset, and I get to decide how I show up every day. This isn't happening to me. You know, and I'm not disillusioned. There are definitely days where I'm like, whoa, like not my favorite day. And because I know my body's shifting. I'm not confused or disillusioned about that. But I also know that there's so much that I can do about it. Because I'm training, I don't know about you, but I am training from my grandma self. I am training for my 70-year-old self. And there is something to be said about being able to play on the floor with my grandchildren, or to be able to get off the toilet or get myself out of a car, or shot put my luggage out into the overhead compartment. Right? That shifts your quality of life. And so today I'm doing the things that help me to feel alive, but I also know that it is setting me up to live that life when I'm in my 70s and 80s and beyond.
It's so beautiful how our conversation is mirroring so many of the other conversations I've been recording these past couple of days. One of them about, you know, having a vision for your life and for your health. And, you know, I'm interviewing a lot of different experts on wellness and fitness because I am in this phase of really just designing what I do today that's going to get me to the vision that I want for the future. And I love how in the book you lay out the 7 pillars to help women thrive in perimenopause and beyond. And I, of course, love that you talk about community.
Yes.
Will you speak to the power of community? Why is community essential for women in perimenopause?
Absolutely. Community is probably one of my absolute favorite pillars inside of the Perimenopause Revolution. Because, I mean, your soul sisters, they're everything, right? Talk about oxytocin boost, talk about being able to process, just having people that are safe in your life. So when I looked at all the research, again, sleep optimization, movement, eating to balance your blood sugar, supporting your metabolism and your mitochondria, hormone replacement therapy. I mean, I looked at everything and I was like, what are the non-negotiable needle movers? And the research was so clear that by surrounding ourselves in community, being around women that feel safe and that are in this journey with us is the greatest longevity hack that we can bring out. I mean, it is the one thing that will help you to live longer and help you to have a better health span. It's everything. Because loneliness, man, it is such an epidemic, particularly in midlife, particularly for midlife women, when we have been told that a lot of what we're going through is our fault. That we've been told that we should feel ashamed for the hot flashes and the night sweats and the weight gain and the vaginal dryness, right? Or the low libido where we don't feel the drive towards intimacy. It's all our fault and we're to blame for this. And that can feel so lonely. It can feel, it kind of forces so many women to go inward. But I always tell women, like, this is not the time to go inward. This is the time to double down on friendships. And if you're feeling alone, you feel like you don't have the friendships that you want, there are so many ways that we can go and cultivate them. Go and get friends like it is your number one job. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And there's so many ways that we can do that. And so I talk about that in the book as well, about how to cultivate community and how to surround yourself with people who are really in it with you, because we're in it together.
Yeah. And for me, at least, this is a priority. Also cultivating that community of people who have and are willing to have more empowering conversations around it. Instead of, you know what I mean? Instead of sitting around, I think about other conversations I hear around these changes that are almost, the connection is based on commiserating about how awful it is. So I think it's the same thing as cultivating a community to support your business. It's finding people who you can be real and honest about whatever you're struggling with as it relates to some of these changes. But then for me, I want to create a community of women who are like, great, and what are we doing about it?
Yes, exactly.
Let's switch the conversation. On the days that I can't, maybe I'm on day 20 something instead of on day 12, but I can have my day 12 friend who's like going to remind me that it's all a part of a beautiful transition and an awakening, like you said.
Absolutely. I mean, thinking having friends that can, one, meet you where you're at. Like, there's days that are not my favorite days, especially like my migraine days or my days where I'm just feeling a little bit more doom and gloom. So someone who can really understand and hold space for that, but also that we're talking about, how are we being consistent? How are we showing up? And more importantly, I want women, I think we all deserve women in our lives that are cheering us on, that are always cheering us on. And that, because there's going to be, there's always opportunities to celebrate, even the small ones. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be the big epic win. It could be the small wins that are moving us forward. And I think celebrating those small wins, or just celebrating each other in general, to me, that is our greatest superpower as women.
I agree. Okay, I want to talk about the fitness component, because this is a question that I got from the community in anticipation of our conversation. And the truth is that fitness and the way our body responds to it does change with every decade. Like we said, I can't do the same things that I did in my 20s, but I also have a lot better base of muscle in my 40s than I did in my 20s. So there's things that are shifting and my body responds differently. My body recovers differently. So when it comes to our fitness in perimenopause, what are the most important things to keep in mind as it relates to supporting our bodies through this transition?
Number one is hot girl walks. I would say build your life around movement as much as possible. And that includes hot girl walks any time of the day, but I love the morning, especially after meals, to stabilize blood glucose levels. It's a big part of our cellular energy, and really everything is grounded in our cellular energy. But be thinking about, how can I move every day? I've been working out in the gym since I was 16 years old. I've been a little gym rat. And I used to believe, and it's definitely when I was 16 and in my 20s, this was true, that I could do the one big workout, whether it was a HIIT workout or a big strength training workout, and then I was done for the rest of the day, right? I didn't have to do anything for the rest of the day. I was usually in class, like at college, or I was sitting in a lab as a biochemist, and I was good. But I'll tell you what, as you move into your mid to late 30s and into your 40s, and really this should have been the through line all along, but that one workout and then us sitting for 5 to 6 hours every single day basically negates the workout. And so it's really about moving intentionally throughout your day. So my favorite thing is walking, but also I love exercise snacks. Because there's a lot of women who are listening who are like, I don't have time to go on a 15-minute walk after dinner, or I don't have time. I've got 3 kids, or I've got a full schedule. And so I love embedding. I was even doing, before this interview, I was doing my exercise snacks. And so this is literally 1 minute to 5 minutes of high intensity interval training. So think jack squats, jump squats, think mountain climbers, push-ups, or walking up and down your stairs with weights. And it could be literally 2 minutes, and embedding those little snacks throughout your day. It revs your heart rate, it stabilizes your blood glucose, it helps you to build muscle, and it helps you to burn fat. So those would be the things I would bring to the table. Yes, you need to strength train. Yes, you need to build, progressive overload 2 to 3 times a week. Absolutely. But if we could be moving throughout our day, to me, that is probably one of the greatest things we can do for our bodies.
Gosh, and you're right. I don't think about utilizing those 1 to 2 minute, even like I have an electric toothbrush. It's 2 minutes of brushing my teeth. Like I know that that's how long the cycle is. And could I habit stack? I'm doing something that I'm going to do in my day anyway. And it's just the reminder that there's always a time and a place for it if we look in our daily routine. But let's talk about like the ideal, because there's a lot of focus on building muscle, building lean muscle, and how much exercise is even required to build the foundation of muscle that will really support us. So why is muscle so important as we enter midlife, especially?
Yeah. So muscle is our organ of longevity. Muscle is our glucose sink. So it's allowing us to process glucose. And from a mitochondrial perspective, which are the little energy powerhouses in almost every single cell in our body, we don't have them in our red blood cells, but they are what is driving energy. And it's important. We're leveraging glucose. We're leveraging, fat to create that energy. But we need to make sure that we're actually utilizing it. So muscle is one of the best ways that we can really leverage that glucose. Also, muscle is so needed for us to be resilient in the later stages of our life. I'm talking about living a life of aliveness. We also know that muscle is modulating the immune system. It is helping to support our metabolism, but also it is ensuring that we're not breaking bones later in life. It's ensuring that our brain is firing all cylinders and that we are able to do the things that we want to do without having to negotiate with ourselves later in life. So that lean body mass is everything when it comes to longevity and health span.
Yeah. Okay, there's like 1,000 more questions I want to ask you on this topic, but I want to turn to the book, because the truth is that the book has the answers to so many of the questions that even those of you listening might be having right now. So what can we expect to find within your new book, The Perimenopause Revolution? Yeah. And just tell us a little bit of what to expect, because I love how you've laid out the book. It's so practical and it's such a great resource for this stage of life. And I think every single woman needs to have a copy in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just to piggyback on the workouts, like in the book, I have a beginner workout for someone who is picking up weights for the first time, or who's stepping in the gym for the first time, or maybe even their home gym. So I want you to know that I am going to meet you where you're at. And then I have an intermediate program that we pulled from the book, but it's a part of the bonuses, along with videos. I have all of this recorded in videos. I make it so easy. I even have really great music to it. Like I just want it to feel like I'm almost doing it for you.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about building muscle. Like it is the ultimate flex, because that's the one thing about, building muscle, toning your body, having good lean body mass, is that you had to work for it.
Yes.
Like you can't shortcut your way into building muscle. And I know you know that, Lindsay. Yeah. And so the intermediate program is really about building that muscle, progressive overload over time. So I got you covered on the workout and the movement piece inside of this book. So part 1 of the book is really, the question I get over and over again, thousands of patients is, am I in perimenopause? Is this perimenopause? So the first part of the book is all about understanding what it is, which I know we talked about today, and also what's happening with your body, so that when you get brushed off, you're like, actually, no, my brain is massively reorganizing. Actually, no, I am actually losing a little bit of muscle over time, or actually, no, my mental health is shifting, and this is a part of this transition. So I want women to feel validated in their experience, but then I also want them to know that there's so much that they can do. And that is part 2 2 of the book. It's the pillars. It is the non-negotiable pillars, from sleep optimization to building your life around movement, to friendship, to hormone replacement therapy, to eating metabolically healthy meals that are going to protect your future brain. So all of that is built into part 2. And then part 3 is the grand plan. Is the entire 4-week plan or 5-week plan with mindset, meal plans, workout videos. I mean, everything you need. I want women to feel like this is, in a lot of ways, done for them. And it's just about implementation.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, you heard it, everybody. Like, it is the guide that we need for these next 10 years, 5 to 10 years and beyond. And, it's something that the earlier we can educate ourselves and empower ourselves and surround ourselves with that community, the better equipped we'll be to thrive in this season of life. What's one question you wish more people asked you about the topic of perimenopause?
I would say the question is, how do I set myself up to win in my 60s and 70s and beyond? Like, what can I do today that is going to future-proof my health tomorrow? Because that's the conversation I want to be having more often.
Yeah.
Yes, we need to validate what you're going through. And I am so on board with just meeting women with where they're at, but I also want to move them through to not only feeling amazing right now, because I want to mitigate symptoms. I don't want you to be suffering needlessly ever. I believe that women deserve to feel alive and deserve to feel amazing in their body at every phase of their life, because we are giving to everybody.
Yeah.
I want you to be giving from a full cup.
Yeah.
Always. And then I want you to know that the things that you're doing today is setting you up to win for 10, 15, 20 years down the line.
Yeah.
I want to be having that conversation.
And you are. I mean, you're really part of a much bigger movement and a revolution around women's health and what it means to age in an empowered way. You shared something so beautiful at dinner last night about just the mission behind why you love working with women and how you are changing the world by working with women. Will you share exactly how you said that? The way you said it was so beautiful.
No, I hope I'm going to get this right. But basically what I was saying is that women, we are the epicenter of our families. We are the epicenter of our communities, and we are at the epicenter of the world. That when women feel alive in their bodies, it has a massive rippling effect that completely changes the world, especially in this transition, where when women are alive and they bring that knowledge base, we change the world.
Yeah. Amen, sister.
Yeah.
So you have an incredible podcast. I was able to be a guest on the podcast. We had such a beautiful conversation, but your podcast is full of knowledge and wisdom and ways for women to be their own advocates as they enter perimenopause and beyond, or just their overall health. So tell us where we can find the podcast, where we can find the book, and where we can connect with you.
Yeah, so the podcast is called Energized, because let me tell you, even at any age, I'm like, okay, how do I step up and optimize more energy? I'm like, give me more energy. I will take all the energy and more. So Energized with Dr. Mariza. And again, it's really about the conversation about how we get to future-proof our health, but how we advocate for our health, and also the daily non-negotiable habits and rituals that are going to have us just show up for the people that we love. What I love about that show is, like, A to Z, I'm going to walk you through all of it, with labs, everything. And I have incredible guests like yourself on there as well. Also, the book is The Perimenopause Revolution. Again, this is a movement. It's a rallying cry, because we are done being ignored. And you can buy it anywhere books are sold. And I'm actually recording it in very soon, so you can get it on Audible. I'm a big Audible mom. I consume a lot of books on Audible, so a great place to get it is there. And then you can find me on Insta at my website, drmariza.com. So that's DrMariza.
And we'll make sure to link everything in the show notes to make it super easy for everybody to find. I want to end with the question that I end every guest interview with, which is an opportunity to pause and just celebrate ourselves. It's the opportunity for you to reflect on something big or small that you just want to celebrate yourself for. We call it a powerhouse moment. And oftentimes the small ones are the ones I overlook the easiest. So when I ask, what's a recent powerhouse moment that you want to celebrate? what's the first thing that comes to mind?
I would say that getting so clear on my yeses, on my full body yeses, and getting to share this message in a really big way. You know, when it comes to this book, I ask myself every day, what are you willing to do to get this message out there? And I have been so proud of myself for answering that in such a big way. And I'm just like, I am willing to do anything to get this message out there. And so that would be my big celebration, is my commitment to this movement, my commitment to women, and my commitment to helping women feel amazing in their body.
Your message, your commitment to this work is so inspiring. And I'm just truly so grateful for women like you who are making these inevitable transitions that we go through in life so much less scary and lonely. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun.